everyone. Thanks for joining us today. Hi, Ashley. Before we start, I want to actually give a huge shout out to all the marketing team and the technical team for making this happening today. It's a lot going on behind the scenes. You have no idea. So thank you guys for helping us with that. My name is Paula. I'm a business development coordinator for liv.rent. I've been working with the company for almost 3 years. And liv.rent is an all-in-one platform where landlords, property managers can meet qualified tenants and do the entire rental process in only one place. We have here Ashley, a realtor with Oakwyn Realty. Hi, Ashley. How are you doing today?
Hi, Paul. I'm doing really well. Thank you so much for having me.
Can you introduce yourself a little bit, your work experience, so people can know you?
Yeah, for sure. So as you mentioned, I'm a realtor with Oakwyn Realty based in Vancouver. I've been a realtor since 2008. I actually started in the Fraser Valley where I grew up. So I have a pretty broad spectrum of knowledge in terms of the Lower Mainland. And last year I was president of the Real Estate Board of Greater Vancouver. So you may or may not have seen me, speaking to the news about the market stats and that sort of a thing. So anyhow, I really appreciate you inviting me on today, and this is going to be a lot of fun.
Yes, absolutely. Thanks for participating.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I meant to mention about liv.rent. I was introduced to you guys through my business partner who sees a lot of value in what it is that you do. So, we've seen your reports and we use those to help inform our clients. So I just wanted to throw that in there that it's a great partnership and we get a lot of value from you guys. So thank you.
Oh, that's amazing to hear. Thanks for sharing. Today's webinar is on the Vancouver rental market. So for the first half of this, we will be revealing our key insights from 2020. And then from the remaining half, we'll talk about some of our 2021 predictions. So stay tuned. Before we jump in, let's take a look and see who we have in our audience based on our registration survey here. So we do have 49% of our audience are renters, and the other half is between landlords, property managers, and realtors. We do have a lot of experienced landlords, which is great, but we also have a couple of landlords with less than 1 year or from 1 to 2 years experience. Most of them have from 1 to 5 properties, which is great. So I'm sure you will be having a lot of value from today's webinar. Yeah, do you have any comments on the audience stats?
Yeah, it's really neat to see the diversity in the audience today. I think it's pretty cool to see how many renters are here. I think that speaks to everyone's kind of wondering what 2021 is going to have in store for us. So I would imagine that's why many are here. So hopefully the renters in the audience get a lot of value out of the information provided today, and hopefully the seasoned landlords, property managers, and realtors are able to take some of these insights and data, take it back to their teams, because I know as a realtor in particular that rental data, if you don't have these sorts of access to this sort of information, can be very challenging. So bringing some real information versus anecdotal thoughts to your team, I think, is really great.
Yeah, absolutely. I also thought that it was very interesting, the fact that we have so many renters, and I feel like we do have, we were actually chatting about it. We do have lots of renters asking us, are the prices going to go up in 2021? What's going to happen after the vaccines are here? So we will be discussing all of that with you guys today. Just a quick reminder, we do have a Q&A session at the end, so feel free to enter all your questions in the live chat. The panel is here on the right-hand side, and then we'll answer all the questions in the end, okay? Just a quick reminder as well, we have a great giveaway going on, and you'll have 3 chances to take away a $100 Amazon gift card. So we have 3 winners, and in order for you to enter, you just need to navigate to the giveaway panel on the right side of this live stream, complete the specified actions to be entered in our draw, and make sure you press the submit entry button. This is pretty important. So for each completed action, you have an additional raffle entry. So that's right, you have up to 5 different entries in our raffle draw. Once you complete the actions, again, please don't forget to click on the submit entry button. once you're done with your action. Okay. Before we look at our key insights for 2020, we are curious to know what you think. So which major Canadian city experienced the most drastic change in rental prices in 2020? What do you think, Ashley?
Well, I've definitely heard some rumors, but I think there's been probably some downward pressure in a lot of the centers. So curious to see what the results are.
Yeah, we are waiting for our results here to see what people think. I'm sure everyone will think that it was not Vancouver because the prices are still pretty high. We're just waiting for the marketing team to give us the answers. I do feel like Montreal could be the one, but I've seen a couple of people talking about Toronto rental market as well because the prices were down quite a bit in there.
I did see an article come out, I'm assuming, I believe it was in January, stating that Toronto's no longer the most expensive rental market in Canada.
We are.
Yeah, I mean, there's been some downward pressure on price, but I'm assuming there's been more downward pressure on price in that region.
Yeah, for sure. Well, we'll be discussing a bit about Toronto as well as we compare to Vancouver. We do have the answers here. So 43%, it's kind of like half here. So 43% of the audience voted for something as opposed to 44%. I guess most people are voting for Vancouver and Toronto, but the answer is actually Ottawa, which it was quite surprising for me. Ottawa is the major Canadian city that experienced an increase in rent, and by 13.8%, which is huge. Vancouver, on the other hand, only experienced a change of minus 1.9%, which brings us to our first insight. So the first insight says that Vancouver saw the smallest change in rental prices. Apparently, we just had like a 1.9% decrease when we think about the overall, including both furnished and non-furnished rentals. And if we compare to Ottawa, they had 13.8%. So it's a huge difference there. Based on one-bedroom data, as you can see on our graphics, unfurnished rentals had a 1.4% decrease in Vancouver. But in furnished rentals, we saw a 2.4% decrease, as opposed to 14.8% increase in Ottawa. But another interesting fact here is that Toronto saw a 13.1% decrease in furnished rentals. Do you have any comments, Ashley?
Yeah, I mean, based on what I see, I think there's a lot of different moving pieces, but I think we're talking, when you look at an area like Toronto as an example, there's a pretty healthy short-term rental market, so furnished rental market. Obviously, with limitations and restrictions on travel, I'm not surprised to see they've seen more of a hit than perhaps what we've seen here in Vancouver, because I don't think we have the same type of short-term vacation style rentals going on. And obviously in the Vancouver region, there's a lot of regulatory stuff that's been happening for some time now, right? So I think the foundational stuff just is a little bit different. A lot of people go to Toronto and those regions for business. It's not happening right now. I think Vancouver, where we're seeing, obviously there's leisure travel we're not seeing right now, but also students are not coming and staying because of course we're not in class. So there's a lot of things going on. I can't really speak to Ottawa, but it's interesting to see where they've gone.
Yeah, I think 2020 brought lots of changes to the Canadian real estate market, definitely, especially in terms of furnished. And as you were talking about, like here in Vancouver, we are highly focused on international students when it comes to furnished, also like leisure or working professionals. But over there in Toronto, they do have definitely way more furnished rentals focusing on those professionals. And since nobody's traveling for business, those are all empty, right? So that pushes the prices down.
Mm-hmm.
Before we jump into our next insight, we want to know where do you get your rental stats and rental news from? So tell us how you usually stay up to date on the cost of renting. Next, into our second insight, one-bedroom rentals see continued decline in search volume. I felt that quite a bit, especially on liv.rent Insights. So while search volume in Q1 to Q4 for one bedrooms is still higher compared to other listing sites, it dropped from 44% to 36%, whereas two bedroom have seen an increase from 24% in Q1 to 33% in Q4. And I feel like that's likely because people are trying to make more space if they're working from home. If they were, in a one-bedroom apartment, now they need an office because you cannot have your husband working on the living room and yourself working in the bedroom. So I feel like that was the main reason. Do you have any comments? Do you think that was?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of this is lifestyle. As a realtor working downtown, we do see people traditionally making a lot of compromises in order to live where they want to live. So sometimes that will mean an individual or a couple living in a small one bedroom and perhaps using a closet as an office or a baby room or both. I've seen. and over the last year, I think a lot of people have recognized that just isn't going to cut it. And I'm sure for renters, it's the same. I think people have understood that the work from home culture is likely going to be here to stay in one form or another, whether that's full-time or at least part-time. So people needing that extra space, as you mentioned, you can't have two people full-time working at a kitchen table to be as productive as they want. So obviously one bedrooms are typically very popular with investors. So this is something that they may want to think about. But of course, we're going to talk a little bit more about moving ahead and past the pandemic. We'll get to that a little bit more. But I'm not surprised that one bedroom searches are down and two bedrooms are up. It makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. We also need to think about those roommates, right? If sometimes you have like two or three roommates in a one-bedroom apartment, one living in the bedroom and the other one sleeping in the living room. Right now, if both are working from home, it will be hard for you to, cope with the entire situation. So even roommates are moving to bigger places as well.
Yeah.
So let's check the results for our latest poll. So where do you get your rental stats from? 53% of the audience voted for liv.rent monthly rent report. That's amazing to hear. Thanks, guys. We are super happy to know that it's been very helpful for all of you. And 18% of the audience also voted for PadMapper rental reports. There was a comment from the audience here. Eric is also saying that he gets a lot of insights from the Canadian Mortgage and Housing Corporation. That's definitely a great source of information. Thanks for sharing, Eric. By the way, if you haven't subscribed to liv.rent yet, please make sure you do so because you'll never miss out on our monthly reports with full of information, and you can also get the latest updates on liv.rent's newest features. Before we move to our third 2020 rental insight, we want to hear from our renters in the audience. So during the pandemic, did you move or have plans to move to a larger rental unit? I'm super curious to know. When the prices go down, I'm pretty sure lots of people moved. So let's see what they think. On to our third insight, furnished rentals saw a larger drop compared to unfurnished rentals. That's what we were discussing before, right? So in an overall, furnished rentals were down by 8.9% and unfurnished 3.5%. The percentage drop in furnished rentals were mainly contributed by multi-bedrooms, so 3 bedrooms specifically, a decrease of 11.8%. And for unfurnished rentals, it was the same thing, 3 bedrooms down by 6.5%. Ashley, I have a question for you. Are you team furnished or team unfurnished?
Well, I think traditionally, if you're, a landlord or investor, it's really interesting to look at a furnished property in terms of rental opportunity. Right now, I don't think that's the case. But I do think from more of the renter standpoint, locally, unfurnished is usually where it's at. A lot of folks want to come in with their own stuff. I know when I was a renter, that's how I felt about it. So that's what I think.
Yeah, I feel like it's also interesting to understand where those people, those renters are coming from. So let's say they're, coming to Canada and they don't have any other places to go. They might prefer a furnished suite because, they have time to look for an unfurnished place and buy all their furniture and all of that. If we're talking about locals, as you mentioned, they will prefer to, get their own furniture in place. So let's take a look. Go ahead.
I think to your point, though, just students generally, furnished is a big opportunity. Like parents who are sending their kids here to go to university, less to worry about. Great, but that's the demographic we're not seeing right now.
Exactly. Yeah. Let's see what the audience. So during the pandemic, did you move or have plans to move to a larger rental unit? 64% of the audience said yes. So most people were probably taking advantage of the cheaper prices, right? More affordable prices. Now that we've seen how COVID-19 has played out last year, we want to hear from you. Post-pandemic, are you team furnished or team unfurnished? Let us know in the live chat if you prefer to buy your own furniture or you feel like everything's a bit just set it up for you like an IKEA showroom. Onto the fourth insight, unfurnished rentals saw a slightly rebound during summer months. In the rental prices, we saw this rebound, especially in the month of July and August. July for unfurnished and August for furnished. So in July, we saw an increase in the prices for 4.8%, and for the unfurnished, we saw an increase of 0.6%. Those are all comparing to the same time last year, 2019. Do you have any comments on that, Ashley?
Yeah, I mean, it's perfectly aligned with how the real estate market adjusted at that time of the year. March, April, May, June were very quiet. People were really hunkering down. Obviously, a lot of fear about, health and safety protocols. What do we need to be doing? There was not a lot of clarity on how we should be, interacting. And so I think, everything stopped. Once I think people sorted out how we can responsibly view properties or just even move, like the logistics of moving, I think for a period there was really uncertain. And I think people renters in particular, recognize that, this pandemic wasn't going to be 1 month long. I think we realized we're in it for the long haul, and people started making decisions around that time, and have continued to, recognizing that, they can work from home and there's different options. Maybe they need the bigger space, whatever that is, a variety of lifestyle things that they recognize they probably were going to need. So it makes a lot of sense, these stats, to me.
And I do remember during summertime, the number of COVID cases went down substantially. So people were actually thinking about moving. Some of the restrictions were not that strict anymore. So we do feel like this has definitely played out in terms of, making the unfurnished rentals a little bit higher during that time as well.
Yeah, and I think when you start seeing real estate activity happening and transactions happening, that means there's going to be tenants that are moving because people are going to be occupying the home. So it just stimulates that change. So I certainly think, and that's still happening, I think, at this time.
Yeah. We do have our poll results here for Team Furnished and Team Unfurnished, and I was super curious to know. That's impressive. So 82% of the audience voted for Team Unfurnished. So apparently most of us still prefer to, decorate and have your home the way the way you love. And we have 18% of the audience for team furnished. I think, the differences between furnished and unfurnished mainly on, the type, as you're mentioning, the demographics, what people are looking for, if they're coming for short-term rentals, if they're staying for longer, if you're, traveling for business or anything like that, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Moving on to our fifth insight, the largest drops were in downtown Vancouver, South Vancouver, and Surrey. So we did see furnished rentals dropping by 19.5% in Vancouver downtown and 16.8% in Surrey. And unfurnished rentals saw a smaller drop, so 10% in Surrey and 7.2% in downtown Vancouver. Interestingly, these three cities saw their largest drop in multi-bedroom rentals, mostly three-bedroom, whether they were furnished or not. Do you have any insights on, what the price drop could be for those three areas?
Yeah, I think when we talk about downtown Vancouver, it's a little bit self-explanatory given some of the conversations we've already had today. People looking for more space, people being able to work from home provides them with more options. So renters perhaps are starting to look more abroad or perhaps becoming first-time home buyers because obviously they're paying healthy rents. They may be able to afford to purchase their first home. And South Vancouver is an interesting area because I think there's just also at the same time been a big, there's been a lot of new inventory that's come to that part of the city.
Yes.
So that may be a factor as well. I think when we talk about Surrey and when we talk about three bedrooms in general, I think when you think about a three-bedroom home, you're either thinking about families or you're thinking about roommates or perhaps more student environments. We've already spoken about the student environment has obviously been impacted. I think even roommates living together, if people weren't feeling safe because maybe their roommates were not abiding by health and safety protocols.
That's so true. That's a great point.
And keeping in mind that a lot of renters, depending on the age demographic, if they're not students, they very well may be in the service sector, so they may be a little bit more cautious about their income. And I grew up in Surrey, and I'm a millennial, and I know that a lot of folks, if they don't have families of their own, they may very well be looking at moving back in with mom and dad during this time. So I'm not surprised. There's probably been a lot of variables, a lot of factors moving people around. But I also think that from the three-bedroom, the families, that could very well be, smaller dwellings in Vancouver, for example, townhouses, half duplex, whatever it is. And I think folks are looking at, can they upsize their space? So while three bedrooms is a lot, they might need more, and they might more in terms of outdoor area, backyards, place for the kids to run around because they're not, going into public spaces. So I think people really reevaluated where they could be given the way we're all functioning right now with work. So a lot of things, but yeah, it's interesting to see the downtown and Surrey being kind of the two key players here. Yeah,
I think 2020 definitely has taught us a lot in terms of the rental market. And if you are a landlord, a realtor, if you have an investment property and you have no idea how to price your unit at this moment, if you're doing like a huge drop or if you're not, able to come up with a better price in order to be competitive, please make sure you stay tuned on the latest insights that liv.rent provides. We do have our rental stats coming up every month, and besides that, we do have inside our landlord dashboard some key insights for you to see how your listing compares to others in the area. So we do have like a price per square footage, and we also do show you how your price compares to the other listings. So if it's too high, if it's too low, so you can have a better understanding of how you're pricing your place and how you can be more competitive. Moving on to our next insight, Coquitlam, New Westminster, and Burnaby saw an increase in prices. That doesn't surprise me. Coquitlam sees an increase in unfurnished rentals, so the overall price increased by 1.5% compared to, again, 2019, and that was mainly contributed by two-bedroom that was up by 12.2%. And in New Westminster, we saw unfurnished rentals increase by 0.5%, and again contributed by two-bedroom units that were increased by 4.3%. I feel like this is mainly because of the reason, people are looking for bigger places, and especially in Coquitlam area, we do have a lot of new developments in there. So the prices are, definitely higher. And if people are looking for a bigger place, well, the prices will likely be pushed by those, two bedrooms and three bedroom units, right?
Yeah, I think you're seeing, there's two sides of the evolving demand here. You've probably got the people who already live in and around the area and are upsizing their spaces to, the points we've been discussing. And then you've likely got people migrating eastward a little bit, perhaps from sort of downtown Burnaby to get into something a little bigger for more of affordable value. We know that, you look at the Tri-Cities generally and anywhere, Brentwood, of course, places that are going to be attractive post-pandemic, where, you're on the transit line or near the transit line. There's growing amenities. As you mentioned, there's growing communities with newer developments that are really attractive, I think, for a lot of people. So that's not a surprise. It's not overwhelmingly huge increases, perhaps aside from maybe the two bedrooms there in Coquitlam. But it makes a lot of sense to me that these areas are attracting people probably from within and from without.
Yeah, it does make a lot of sense. And we will be discussing that on our 2021 predictions as well, so stay tuned. Finally, our last insight, North Vancouver and Coquitlam showed resilience on the rental market. So North Vancouver has experienced an upward pressure on rental prices since the early days of the pandemic. For furnished one-bedroom rentals, they were actually up by 4.4%. And in Coquitlam, we did see rise in furnished one-bedroom early in the pandemic and throughout 2020. So for furnished one bedrooms, we saw a surge in prices of 14.4% compared to 2019, which in my opinion is huge during a pandemic. But I feel like, again, talking about, the big developments, the newest developments in Coquitlam, some of them come with, a monthly bed or sometimes, like a table or a kitchen island. They're kind of like furnished, and those were probably the ones responsible for pushing the prices up a little bit.
Yeah, and I think the same goes for North Vancouver to some degree. There's a lot of new strata homes in the area, which I think just would bring in higher rents because of the quality and the fact that they're new and they're in great areas. So that
all the amenities as well that the buildings can offer, right?
Yeah. And although maybe that's a good time to bring that up, that's one thing that I think during the pandemic has been a bit tough is usually the amenities in buildings are a big draw. And many of them have had, restricted access to either some degree or full degree. So that's been, something that I think both renters and landlords are thinking about, that value proposition has been either cut off or just a little more restricted. So that's
a great point.
Yeah.
Before we can go ahead, we want to know from you. So what's your 2021 rental investment goal or plan? I'm super curious to know that too. Let us know in the live chat on how the pandemic may have changed this. So now before we go to our 2021 predictions, we want to share a message from our sponsors. So for those 50% of renters in our audience, we do have 4 different feature listings here from landlords and property managers on liv.rent. So on the first one here, you can see 1 bedroom Vancouver, just in front of the Joyce Collingwood station, and it's pet friendly, priced super well at $17.25. We also have a 2 bedroom in Surrey, high rise, a huge 2 bedroom, 920 square feet by Oakwyn Realty, 2100. And we also have a pet friendly, super family oriented, small rise, like low rise in Coquitlam from Patty Ho, just $19.95, which is a great price. And we have a fully furnished suite with all the amenities included and the utilities from Prompton Real Estate at only $2,700. So great stuff in there. If you're looking into moving right now, 2021, that's the best time for you to do it. Before we move into our 2021 predictions, I also want to share with you a webinar exclusive offer that we have. So we're offering landlords and property manager a 50% credit for all webinar participants towards your next feature listing ads. So in order for you to redeem your offer, just make sure you click on the redeem now pop-up on the screen that you might be seeing over there. And then you will be connected to a liv.rent agent via email. So this is a great opportunity for you to advertise your rental in a professional way and syndicate it to multiple channels with liv.rent. So please make sure you don't miss it out, okay? $50 is a huge discount. Now let's take a look at our 2021 predictions. The first one is renters are moving away from city centers in 2021. That's a great one. We've discussed this quite a few times throughout 2020, and I guess that's going to be a trend in 2021. What do you think, Ashley?
Yeah, I think the trend for this year anyhow is likely going to continue, that renters are going to be exploring their options, which perhaps may be a bit broader than they thought they would have been a year ago. So I think that we're seeing trends in New Westminster, Coquitlam, et cetera, of some perhaps upward pressure on price. At the very least, the demand is there. I wouldn't be surprised if that continues moving, through the year. I think work from home is going to continue to be a driving factor. One of the unknowns right now is, I guess, moving beyond this year is, how companies are going to deal with the work from home culture. But I think for 2021, at the very least, most companies are going to have that integrated in one way or another. So, space at home is going to be a driving factor for a lot of tenants, I believe. It's kind of been treated as like an exodus of the downtown core, and I think all urban centers, even throughout North America and other areas, we hear about it in Manhattan. There's been this big exodus, but you hear from a lot of these markets that people expect folks will start moving back to the city centers.
To the suburbs. Afterwards, yeah.
After the vaccines are rolled out properly and implemented, et cetera. I think the key thing right now is obviously, besides space, people choose to pay a premium to live downtown because of the vibrancy of the communities, and that often has to do with how they're able to interact with their friends, the restaurants they're able to go to, not just by themselves, but with their colleagues or on a date or whatever it is. So the appeal,
and I guess especially post-pandemic, everybody is going to be, I want to be in the city center. I want to see people. I want to see some faces, right?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure there's going to be some folks who buy into perhaps more suburban lifestyle or whatever it is, and if we end up getting back to more normal environment, there's still very well maybe partial work from home options. So people might only be commuting 1 to 3 times a week into the city versus every day. So that's going to impact what they do. But of course, once we see travel again, and once we see students coming back and all of that stuff, I think the vibrancy of downtown will be back. But for this year, for our primary long-term tenants, they're exploring their options in 2021.
Yeah. And I guess working from home was a very good point that you mentioned, because, if people are able to work from home and maybe try to afford even buying a property in like Abbotsford, Maple Ridge, or even Kelowna, that's something that we've seen a couple of renters actually going to the suburbs because they don't have to commute to downtown every day. And if they go back to working in their offices, as you mentioned, they might do it only like 2 to 3 times a week. So it's definitely, it's worthwhile for them to, just live it in the suburbs for an affordable price and commuting only 2 to 3 times a week. But I agree with you, like post-pandemic, people will want to, just go back to downtown Vancouver where all the buzz is.
Yeah. The demographic I'm thinking a lot about post-pandemic are actually the baby boomers. So there were people who are going to be downsizing. They've maybe been waiting for the market to recover, which in many ways, in many areas it has. Like if they have a detached home in Surrey or in anywhere in the region, really, they're starting to see that they're likely going to get the returns on their assets, hopefully, where there was some downward pressure on prices for some time. And so I think these boomers with the money are going to start wanting to look at where they can explore, where they can live or live part-time. So that'll be an interesting demographic to watch, I think.
Yeah. And I guess for those, it will be a great opportunity for them to move to condos in downtown, right? Especially now that the prices are down. So it can be a choice.
I think you're right. Yeah.
Yeah. On to our second prediction, we will continue to see a surplus of rental supply throughout 2021 as former short-term rentals convert to long-term rentals. What do you think, Ashley? Do you think short-term rentals will be still a lot out there and empty in 2021?
I think a lot of investors, landlords, are going to start really carefully looking at, if they haven't already, how they may, adapt. I certainly have clients who have, even just secondary suites in their homes that they were using as short-term rentals, and they kept vacant for some time because they weren't quite sure what to do next. And I think a sentiment for a lot of people is to look at more of the longer-term rentals. And I also think that some people are starting to explore some of the opportunities out there in terms of the condo market because there's been some downward pressure on purchase price, thinking that, it could be a good time to purchase an investment property, and likely looking at them more as longer term rentals. So I think we're going to see a few different moving pieces. Short-term rentals are, I think, just really tough, especially without students and that sort of a thing here, recognizing that in many of our municipalities here, there's a pretty heavy regulatory environment on top of all of these other challenges. So, I'm sure some people will continue to make those work, but I do think the trend is going to be more longer term for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, especially I would say until like the mid 2021, right?
I think it's so hard to know when once borders open is going to be a big factor.
Yeah. We do rely a lot on international students, and not only students, but even workers who are coming here, to stay for 3 months or so, especially during summertime. So I do think that we will be able to see how things are going to go once the borders are open.
Yeah, even just traveling locally for work. Like, a lot of Canadians come here from different areas, and
yeah, true.
Like conferences aren't happening. Things are just we're doing it this way.
Even like leisure events, they're not happening either, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
One thing that we need to acknowledge is the fact that with the increase in the rental supply, the competition is, definitely much higher than before. So you need to make sure that you're streamlining your rental process to become faster and to attract the most qualified tenants. Just so you know, on liv.rent, you can list your property in less than 1 minute with our database of over 15,000 buildings, showcasing amenities, construction date, pictures, and even strata plans. So you don't have to worry about any of that. You just need to worry about, getting the most qualified tenant and screening that tenant. Along with that, you can also keep an eye on similar units in the same building and compare prices and see what the other landlords are offering out there. So make sure you sign up for liv.rent if you haven't already. The third prediction is a boost in enticing rental incentives. So we saw that in 2020, and we will continue to see an increase in creative incentives for renters from landlords and property managers. So moving forward, we are going to see more of those, like, months with free rent, months with free utilities, either cable, internet, or even Netflix and Apple TV. I've seen those. Free parking spots as well, new beds and mattresses. So all of those, like, pretty much property management companies and landlords are trying their best to, make sure that their rental places are more enticing to tenants in a very, like, highly competition situation where we're going through right now. What do you think, Ashley?
Yeah, it's interesting to see what people are doing or will be doing. I think it's just really important to remember, whether you're the landlord or the tenant, and if there's incentives involved, just communication is really important, and that clarity is really important. So understanding if incentives are short-term, for example, that dates and the details are very clearly written in agreements and agreed upon. So that way you know what you're signing up for. I think that's really important. I think another really easy win for both sides to be thinking about is pet-friendly rentals. So I bring that up. I got a dog during COVID, and I know a lot of people did. And you know what? I mean, this might be more information than you need, but I was really adamant on getting a rescue, and I could not get a rescue dog locally. Like, my dog ended up coming from Texas, and the reason is dogs are being adopted left, right, and center, over the last year.
Oh, there you go. He knows you're talking about him.
That's so sweet. So, I think.
Okay, we did not plan this, you guys. We didn't.
No, that's great. So, I think 2020 people have really reflected on quality of life, how they spend their time. That's obviously has a lot to do with their home, but it also has to do with who's around them, and in many ways that's their pets. So I think, offering more pet-friendly rentals on the market is good for tenants. It's good for mental health. It's good for a lot of things. And, generally tenants are going to pay a premium for that. I know when I was a renter with my previous dog, I did pay a premium for that. So there's certain things I think about just creating an environment for people that is really conducive to the lifestyle they want, will be good for everybody. So worth keeping in mind.
Yes, absolutely. And of course, like, the rental incentives are endless. If you have any questions about that, please make sure you enter your questions on the live chat, or you can also, get in touch with any liv.rent agents who will be able to answer your questions if you don't know how to do it. On this example here that you see on the screen, for instance, we had a company doing a $750 discount per month for the first 4 months. And of course, who is the renter who doesn't want to have like a $750 a month as a rental incentive, right? Please also don't forget to enter our giveaway. If you haven't already, check out the ways that you can get extra entries as well. On to our fourth prediction, there is going to be a broader adoption of technology in the entire rental process. Oh, that's for sure. We know that because even my grandma is using Zoom calls right now. So I know that we are on the right place. So we're talking about virtual tours, live streaming, 3D tours, like Matterport, for instance, digital contracts, digital rental payments, securing a rental even before arriving in Canada. We see that a lot. So lots of newcomers are actually able to secure a rental, even if they are, let's say, in China or in the US. They don't have to be present here to sign a lease in paper. They can sign everything online. And on liv.rent, we do offer every single feature for you to make sure that you can do the entire rental process contactless. Ashley, do you have any comments on virtual tours and rental tech? What do you like the most?
Yeah, you know what? I think that this past year has just expedited how important the consumer experience is for a variety of reasons. So, as a realtor, virtual tools has become just so foundational to being able to list and sell and market properties. And I don't think it needs to be any different in the rental environment. So a couple of things. First of all, I think it's just so accessible. So they're not very inhibitive in terms of like cost. There's a lot of options depending on, you know, what kind of portfolio you have, for example. But, you know, a virtual tour to me can be as simple as taking your smartphone and creating either a live video with one-on-one with a prospective tenant, or creating a quick clip that you can send to people to preview. And I'm just going to pull out my gimbal right here that I bought. It's about $130, $140, that allows you to create reasonably, you know, not professional video quality, but close, pretty close. So, you know, I've probably done about 250 to 300 virtual tours over the last year.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I would say at least. And I realize it may not be for everybody, but you just need to take a camera around, show the highlights of the space. Now, of course, there's other tools like Matterport, which is also something that I subscribe to with most of my property listings, where it's a very immersive, engaging 3D virtual tour. I think the value is good. I actually would say, you know, if you're not familiar with Matterport, you want to check it out. But you know, the difference between it being a rental property versus like a real estate residential listing is I get to use it once and then that's it. If this is in your portfolio for some time, it's a tool you can recycle. So I think there's a lot of value in that. And I've been told from the lovely ladies here at liv.rent that Matterport actually offers their first virtual tour free. It's a more of a DIY approach that they offer for you to understand how the technology works. So it's not the full service, but certainly I don't think there's any harm in giving it a try. So you know what, the tools are endless. Social media, being able, depending on your you know, what it is that you want to get done, there's just a lot of tools. And obviously I did want to mention, you know, during the height of the pandemic, health and safety was priority number one. So we really tried to avoid in-person interaction. I think from the rental perspective, that's likely the same, but there could be, one of the things I hear about a lot from renters, people call me all the time when they're going to rent a property, and I'm not usually the best source for the advice on the process, but people are very cautious about being scammed. So I think that with a digital framework, there's potential concerns if people aren't on site on the property, but there's also potential solutions. So maybe, Paula, you can mention, I think you guys have some resources or tools for that.
Yeah, absolutely. That's actually a great point, because we've seen an increase in the amount of rental scammers out there, especially on Craigslist and other listing websites. On liv.rent, we do make sure that, you know, both landlords and renters are fully verified by our compliance team. So we verified their business license, government's issued ID, as well as selfie. And for landlords, property managers, we do verify their listings as well. So we make sure that we collect their property taxes or anything that shows that the property they have on liv.rent is actually theirs. And, you know, we are just trying to make sure that we are creating a trusted platform, because right now, during those hard times, we want to make sure, of course, we comply to any health and safety measurements. And if you can do a virtual tour and everything is verified by the liv.rent team, that's the ideal place you want to be. Especially when you were talking about, virtual tours, 3D tours, etc. I was thinking about the fact that, if you're a property manager and you have 10 different listings in a month to deal with, you will be able to save so much money by just doing everything online, as opposed to driving all the way from downtown Vancouver to show a unit in Surrey, for instance. You can be doing that, if you have like just a 3D tour or a saved video, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I think that's definitely going to be a trend in 2021 and even like from now on as well.
Yeah, I'll just hop in quickly and say, like, I do have certain listings where I'm very adamant with prospective buyers and their realtors that before we book the in-person showing, they confirm they've actually viewed the 3D tour and that there's no deal breakers, that it's at least in line with what they think the property is. So that way they've really pre-qualified it. So it saves time. It also prevents a lot of foot traffic in a house right now, which is what we're trying to do. But it really ensures people are investing in the upfront research before spending the time to open the door.
Yeah. And we've actually seen that liv.rent listings with video tours and 3D tours get more buzz and traffic as well. And I think that's the reason, right? People want to be able to see, even if sometimes it's just like a floor plan, they want to be able to see and understand if that's going to fit their needs. And we've seen our users taking advantage of our digital contracts and online rental payments more and more as well. Next to our fifth prediction, we have here saying that renter preferences continue to change and will keep evolving. So on our liv.rent platform, we've been seeing a noticeable change in rental type searches. So since March, one bedrooms have seen a declining search volume, whereas two bedroom are the opposite. So there has been an ongoing upward trend. So people are definitely looking for, bigger spaces. If you have a one bedroom, you're, upgrading to a two bed. If you are in a roommate kind of situation, you are also looking into having one bedroom more. If, someone was sleeping in the living room, they want to be able to have a room where they can also work at, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. I think, we've talked a lot about this trend already today about people really reprioritizing. So, if I was a landlord though, I would keep that in mind. If you happen to have a furnished rental that you want to continue as furnished, things that, or even the way a home is set up, I would really think about, if you have a smaller space, how to create an environment that's multi-purpose, right? Like you see a lot of these dining tables that convert to good working desks, or entertainment units that turn into good working desks, or just really putting some thought into the livability of the space, I think can really benefit yourself and the tenant as well.
Yeah, those are actually really great points. Before we move to our next prediction, we want to know, what was the biggest learning curve for you as a landlord in 2020? I'm sure people will have tons of great insights on this one. I'm curious to hear from you. The sixth prediction is low mortgage rates will incentivize renters to buy. That's a huge one. So as we can see, mortgage rates are at historically low levels. This will incentivize many renters to buy versus rent. And additionally, the softening of the short-term rental market and the difficulty of securing long-term tenants will be seeing more landlords sell their rental properties. I've seen this quite a few times, especially this year. I've seen multiple landlords selling, especially their condos, and multiple landlords who were doing short-term rentals before are definitely moving towards, trying to secure a long-term renter.
Yeah, I'm seeing a lot of this already on both sides. So certainly, I think some investors are choosing to opt out right now, and on the flip side, some renters are looking at buying their first home. So mortgage rates are obviously at historical lows at the moment, and I think people recognizing how important home is and having the security of home and the sort of you can depend on your home being there. I think that's had a huge impact on potential first-time home buyers. The other thing that I'm really seeing now are tenants who were not able to afford to get into the market they currently live in as a homeowner, but now they're starting to, again, broaden their scope of where they may choose to live because of all the things we've already talked about today. So, and I'm talking about people who live in Burnaby, thinking about going to Abbotsford, because home ownership, obviously has been such a challenge for so many. Now the sort of situation is allowing them to go where perhaps they had never thought of going before. So that'll be an interesting thing to see, but I certainly feel over the last couple of months, we really are, now that people I think are recognizing their work environment is not going to go back to 100% what it was before.
Yeah. I'm actually curious to know, like, as a realtor, did you feel did you feel any increase in the number of first home buyers in 2020 or even this year, beginning of 2021?
I think, and this is anecdotal, right? My experience, I saw a lot more upsizers than first-time buyers through the middle of 2020 and towards the end of the year. Definitely seeing more first-time home buyers kind of coming out over the last couple of months. Again, this is just my personal experience. We have to remember that the real estate market in general was at a lull for about a year and a half. And it's funny the way Vancouver works. When the market's really slow and there's good opportunities out there, that's when no one does anything. Yes. It's when the confidence comes back and people see other people buying, and of course the low interest rate stimulating things. There was pent-up demand for some time, and likely a lot of people either planning their next move up or their first purchase. So I think having been able to sit with what the pandemic meant for us for some time, a lot of people now really have a better understanding of what it's going to mean for them in the slightly longer term, and so feeling a little more comfortable. The other piece is with a lot of detached homes starting to sell, I am hearing and seeing and hearing from tenants who are living in suites that are now needing to move, and they're like done. They don't want to move anymore.
I've seen quite a bit. Yeah.
So again, stimulation in the market, pushing tenants out of their properties, suddenly having to go in, especially if they've been somewhere for some time and their rents were low relative to where they would be today. They're starting to look at, okay, well, maybe it's time I buy, even if it means moving 30 minutes away from where I thought I'd think was acceptable.
Yeah, or sometimes paying just a little bit higher, but at least it's something that is theirs, right?
Yeah.
We have one final prediction to share with you, but before we put away our crystal ball, let's take a look at our poll results here. So 39% of our audience voted that they're getting creative with marketing their listings, and 44% voted for, going digital and switching to contactless rental process is a big thing. So I'm really glad that people are, tapping into technology, not only during this time, but I think it's going to be a trend moving forward. And if you haven't switched to any type of, paperless application, paperless, like digital contracts and whatnot, make sure you do it. Otherwise, you will be missing out. On our final. Before our final prediction, I just want to say that we will be closing our giveaway soon. So make sure you enter and check the live chat for instructions. Again, just a quick reminder: please make sure you press submit entry after each completed action. So our last one is Vancouver will be a renter's market in 2021. So what do you think? Do you think Vancouver is going to be a renter's market in 2021 or not? Do you think things are going to go back to normal? Let us know via the poll. We think that in the first half of 2021, renters should take advantage of these lower rental rates that we are seeing. And if you will want to keep a close eye on the rental market stats for 2021, especially as we approach the spring summer months when consumer confidence returns as the vaccine rolls out. So this is going to be a pretty huge thing. If you haven't subscribed to liv.rent yet, please make sure you do so you never miss our monthly rental reports full of tons of useful rental data. So Ashley, do you think 2021, especially during summer months, do you think the prices will go back to normal, or do you think that's going to be like just the trend?
Oh, Paula, I'm so, with my experience last year, I got really nervous about crystal ball predictions, especially things like there's so many unknowns, right, with how things are going to play out. That being said, I do think you're right that the first half of the year is a great opportunity for tenants and potentially for investors as well to be looking at some of those condos that maybe are going for lower prices in terms of purchasing. So I do think the first half of the year, there's a lot of opportunity for all people involved. I don't know what summer's going to do, but perhaps, that is going to be a really pivotal part of this whole pandemic. So I do think that it's likely the confidence will continue to improve. I hope that's the case. The only thing I will say, again, and just emphasize as a realtor, I feel we're quite challenged to really have a good grip on where the rental market is unless we're really heavily involved in those types of properties. So I do think that the one thing people should be doing is subscribing to liv.rent and paying attention to these insights, because it'll help you stay on top of the trend, and paying attention month by month will be a lot more informative than me telling you what I think might happen in 6 months.
Great advice. I think it's always about, not only, checking the rental stats and all the data, but trying to understand what that means. Because sometimes you keep hearing, the news and all that. So you think that the market is going towards one direction, but it's not like that. So you need to be able to see also your own property, right? So sometimes, like the rental market in Vancouver downtown can be in one way, but then if you move to the suburbs, it could be slightly different. Things are likely going to change after the vaccine is here, and also, once the borders are open and all that. So there are multiple factors we need to consider.
Yeah, that's a really good point, actually, because having been involved in doing the market stats releases every month, in the media, with good intention, a lot of things are very generalized because they have to be. So that way it's easy for people to en masse consume it. But there's nuances in most markets based on area and property type. So those details matter.
Yeah, definitely. Apparently we have the results on our last poll here. So 87% of the audience think that Vancouver will be a renter's market in 2021. So if you're a renter, that's your chance. So make sure you move right now while the prices are still down. And as Ashley mentioned, it can be a great opportunity for home buyers and investors as well, since the prices for new condos are also going down right now. That's actually a wrap up on our predictions for 2021. Don't worry if you missed any of our insights. We will be sending everyone here the full report plus all the graphs that we shared in our presentation. And also our giveaway contest is now closed. So we will be starting our Q&A section, and we will announce the 3 winners at the end. So stay with us if you want to see if you won. So let's start our Q&A section here. We have a question from Adrian. How will vacancy rates will affect the empty home tax? That's a great question.
Yeah, I can maybe jump in a little bit on that one. For me, the question probably actually is better in the reverse. How will the empty home tax affect the vacancy rate? So, not to be too playful with your question, Adrian, but that's how I look at it. The empty home tax certainly has impacted, I think, how people look at how they're going to handle their properties. Even as far as even just pre-pandemic, when just before, the real estate market was quite slow, and people who didn't traditionally want to be investors were nervous about maybe didn't want to rent out their properties, but they weren't going to be occupying the units, and it all, even from there, was incentivizing or encouraging property owners to sell versus to hang on to it. So I think at the end of the day, it's either going to evolve or impact rental prices, or people are going to sell. I don't know if you want to add anything to
Which
that.
is happening already, right? We've seen a huge increase in the number of, landlords actually deciding on selling their properties because of the empty home tax. If you have a property sitting empty for 3 months, you definitely don't want that to happen. So they're just deciding on on selling their investment properties instead. Mm-hmm. We have another question here. Did the rent freeze impact the rental prices in Vancouver? That's also a great question from Andre. The rent freeze definitely impacted the rental price in Vancouver. If you think about the rental increase last year was 2.6%, and landlords were not able to do it. So that definitely brings the prices down. But I feel like the rental prices were definitely decreased in Vancouver due to the fact that, furnished rentals were turned into furnished rentals. Some of them, if you're doing Airbnbs with it, and let's say priced at $5,000 for a 2-bedroom, they were now renting the same apartment long-term for $2,500, $3,000. So that's the main reason. What do you think, Ashley? You have any comment?
Yeah, I think you know more than I do. I would just assume that it likely impacted the averages shown in your data here.
Because, it did impact, but it was not a huge impact. That's what I'm saying. Yeah. What we've seen the most was the fact that, furnished rentals were definitely the ones affecting the rental prices more.
Yeah.
And pushing
the driving.
Exactly.
Right. Yeah. Gotcha. It looks like we might be getting something else here.
Yeah, we are getting something else from Eric. Any tips for first-time landlords and new property managers to leverage social media? I'll give that one to Ashley because I used to call her a social media star. She has a great channel on her Instagram, and she does a lot of, cool open houses and stuff. So what's your advice for people to, if they want to leverage their social media channels?
Yeah, I think that it's just such a worthwhile place to be. Very little upfront cost. It could be no upfront cost, and perhaps you may want to invest a little money in how you present yourself online and some of the things you may do. But you know what? This is where we're heading. So I think a lot of times what's happening now is prospective renters and prospective home buyers, oftentimes they see things in their feeds that prompts them to think about moving versus they think about moving and then they're looking for things. So, being able to utilize these tools, I think is only an advantage. I think for property managers, of course, they have perhaps more of a portfolio and more that they can maybe work with in terms of creating a presence. But if you're planning to be a longer term landlord, I think there's opportunity to create, anything visual. I don't know how active you would want to be if it's regular, but anything where you can provide to the prospective tenant and showcase really great quality images of the places you're doing, a place where they can find tours. I think that it also adds to the trust factor. The same thing goes for home builders. Like an example is if I'm a prospective home buyer and I Google the home builder and they're not, I can't find them. I'm like, who are these people? So anytime there's some insight, it adds transparency. It adds some validity, and people recognize like that this is a legitimate landlord or a really great property manager who's maybe, I would say there's room for testimonials or commentary from people who've used your services on both sides. There's just so much opportunity, I think, there. And we're going to continue moving in this direction. So I think anyone that can do it really well, starting now, it will be great. So,
and one thing I'd like to add is the fact that a gimbal, get a gimbal. One thing I'd like to add is the fact that, you know what, just try it. There's so, like, you can Google so much information, useful information nowadays. So if you have a rental property, even if you're just a small investor, just try it. Go to Instagram, add a couple of pictures, virtual tours and all that. We've seen that we've seen a huge increase in the number of landlords and property managers taking advantage of social media, especially Facebook and Instagram in 2020. And now in 2021, we're hoping to see more of that on LinkedIn. So if you are not on those platforms yet, make sure you're not missing out.
Mm-hmm.
We have another question.
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
I just thought it's worth mentioning. One of the main reasons people love Airbnb as a platform is because they get to see what the experience of people before them was like. So any way you can provide experience and people seeing that, I think that is very helpful for everybody and can increase value anyhow. I see there's a couple questions, so we can move forward.
Yeah, we have a question here from Dave. How much of an impact has insurance premiums and strata fees on rental prices? That's mostly for condos and townhouses, right?
Yeah, I mean, you might be able to speak more on the rental prices, but certainly the strata fees have been increasing, which has been a consideration. And that's not just the strata premiums, but a lot of owners are now opting in to get extra insurance for their deductibles, etc. So there's more risk, let's say, and more costs for sure. So I wouldn't.
Yeah, I guess like the strata, especially talking about the strata fees in here, they definitely affect the price. That's something that we can, it's just the way it is. However, I feel like, those property managers, those landlords, they will be able to also increase the value of their properties if you have, let's say, like building amenities. So if you're offering a condo in a building that has, a gym, an amazing exercise center, a pool, and all of that, you will be able to, increase your price a little bit and cut down those, strata fees that you have to pay anyways.
Yeah, so it's a good point, especially if you're around the urban core, like a gym membership, when we're all able to go to gyms, it's very expensive. So if you have even a couple living in an apartment, that's easily $300. If they both go to the gym every month, that's easily $300 they're spending monthly on that part of their life. So I agree that's a big part of their consideration when they're moving into a rental.
And it's a competitive advantage, of course, for whoever is advertising that listing in the building with like full of 5-star amenities, right?
Yeah.
We have another question from Julie. Go ahead. You have another comment on that, Ashley?
Oh, I know that the strata insurance thing, especially going into the pandemic, was a consideration for a lot of prospective investors. I had some clients who were looking at buying condos, and the uncertainty around what was going to happen with the insurance premiums kind of prevented them from getting into that market and becoming your competitor, at least for that period of time. And then the pandemic happened, and I think a lot of people decided that wasn't the right time to make that type of a decision.
Yeah, true.
But I have been hearing that right now what the government and everyone's trying to do are just stabilize, like the prices have kind of gotten where they expect they might be, and they're not necessarily expecting big increases. Please don't quote me on this, but this is what I'm hearing. They're not expecting big increases. It's much more about stabilizing things right now, but it's certainly more expensive now than it was a year and a half ago. So,
yeah, let's hope for the better. We have two more questions. One from Julie. How's the East Van Joyce Collingwood market rentals expected in near future with all the upgrades happening? That's a great question. I've seen lots of new buildings being built over there, so I'm pretty sure the area is going to feel like a bit of an increase in terms of rental prices. But, that area is known for its, amenities, conveniences. Walk score is just like unbelievable. And the prices are fairly, down right now. When I showed you guys the sponsor listings here, we saw a $17.95 one bedroom, and it was just in front of the Joyce Collingwood station. Okay, that was an older building, but I do agree the new high rises will push the prices a little bit up, but I don't think that's going to be too huge, at least not now in 2021. But again, I don't have a crystal ball, so I'm not 100% sure. That's just what I think. One last question from Eric. Where do we get our data from? So all the data from today's webinar is primarily from liv.rent, as well as Craigslist, Kijiji, rentals.ca, centuries.ca, and Zumper as our secondary source. That actually wraps up our Q&A session for today. Thanks for all the questions. You guys are amazing. We are now ready to announce our 3 raffle winners. So we have Natalia Garbuzova here as the first one, $100 Amazon gift card for you. Carmel Lam, as well as Julie H. Congratulations, everyone. Please make sure that you keep an eye on your email, because the liv.rent team will contact you so you can get all the information on getting your prices. Thank you, everyone, again for tuning in. Please also help me thank our special guest, Ashley. Thank you for being our lovely co-host today. And please let everybody know, where can they find you?
Oh, thank you so much, Paula. It was really a pleasure being here. I really appreciate being asked to co-host this with you today. Lots of places you can find me. My website is vancouver.ca, but it might be more fun to find me in places like Instagram. As Paula was mentioning, I'm a very original name, at Ashley_Realtor. And there you'll see links to all my stuff that I do, including a new little thing I'm working on at Vancouver Avenue. We're exploring a bunch of new developments in the region, so that might be fun if you're curious to know about some of the product that's coming down the pipeline. Yeah, you can find everything about me there.
Awesome, that's perfect. Thanks again. It was a pleasure having you here. Make sure you subscribe to liv.rent if you haven't already, and join us again on January 21st. Again, same time, same place for our next webinar on how to maximize your rental investment in 2021. And please, landlords, don't forget to redeem your $50 credit towards your feature listings on liv.rent. You can learn about our feature listing packages via that pop-up that's coming up right now. And also keep an eye on your inbox, because we are sending you the exclusive full reports on the 2020 Vancouver rental market. Thank you, everyone, again for joining us, and see you on January 21st. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.